Yep.
Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico, gentlemen.
Hey,
Hello.
It's funny.
Nice to meet you.
I was just talking to someone in Wales like about a week ago, Mike Peters from The Alarm. So I don't know if you
right.
remember. I don't know if you remember The Alarm.
Yeah.
He has they have a new record coming out. So I've been like talking to English people a lot lately, which is great, man, because, as far as I'm concerned, without England, there would be no rock and roll. Well, we'll give Chuck Berry and Little Richard and a few of those guys some credit, but
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that Louis doing the interview, because you've only been in the band since like October or something.
Yeah, I think I joined probably around December. And then we've just been rehearsing kind of since then, been getting up to speed. But I've known Phoebe and Mark for probably a few months before then. We all used to work together. But yeah, I was like, I've kind of, I thought it'd be good perspective to have myself and Matt. And
Yeah.
then you've got new guy.
I'm going to ask.
regular.
I'm going to ask a lot of questions about the early days, so Matt will probably end up answering a lot of the earlier questions. But
Yeah, cool.
I always like to know, like, are you guys from Brighton? Did you grow up in Brighton?
Yeah, so I
I
grew up
didn't.
in. Sorry, Matt.
Sorry, you go. No, you go.
Okay, so yeah, I grew up in Lewes, which is just outside of Brighton. So I grew up in the area.
And Matt, you.
I'm not from Brighton. I'm from Guernsey in the Channel Islands. So it's kind of a little island between England and France.
Okay, so I can't ask you
But
guys
I
about this.
moved.
So I can't ask you if the song "Brighton Rock" by Queen is actually has anything to do with Brighton at all. Then.
Probably does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's like the film. Yeah. I don't know.
Did Mark and Phoebe grow up in the Brighton area?
Yeah. So I think sort of Brighton and the surrounding areas. They definitely grew up here. So yeah.
It's kind of like the suburbs of the city.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I know maybe Phoebe like moved around a bit, and Mark's from Lancing, which is like just a short drive. So
I,
but yeah, I know they both grew up pretty locally. So
I was doing a little research on Brighton, and some of the bands that I found that were from there were that I knew: the Poison Girls, the Kooks, the Go Team. But Kate Blanchett is from Brighton, and so isn't David Gilmour and Nick Cave.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Which is
Nice.
pretty cool. I like
Um,
Kate Blanchett. She's awesome.
Cool.
yeah, yeah, same. I've seen. I don't know if Nick Cave lives here still, but I used to see him around. Just sort of, I walked past the Starbucks and he was just sitting out there by himself one day. It's just like it's Nick Cave, and like, but you don't want to go up and annoy him or anything. Like, not that I'm like a big Nick Cave fanatic, so I wouldn't know what to say. But yeah.
The birthday party
yeah,
was. I was going to say the birthday party, when they came out, they were really popular in college radio in the States, and then his solo career, of course, took off.
Yeah.
Let's tell me about how the band started, Matt, and when you guys got together, which I think was, I mean, I know that you had a single in 2014, Gasping for Air. Was it just before that the band formed?
So I'm actually haven't been with the band since like the very beginning, which is like I joined in 2016, so I wasn't on drums like the whole way. But yeah, so Mark, our lead guy, like started doing just acoustic by himself, and then gradually had like almost like a backing band. This is going to be like 2014, 2013, 2014 kind of time. So yeah, that's around when they did Gasping for Air and like a couple of EPs. So like I can't really speak for that kind of time. But I did, that was around the sort of time I met Mark, but I never really saw the band live. But
I
yeah, I
knew,
know Gasping for
I
What
knew
was that,
he's,
sorry?
I knew he started off doing mostly acoustic stuff before the band actually got together. So
Yeah.
Discordance is the album that you pretty much played on when you started with the band. No
Yeah.
Discordance.
No Discordance, yeah. So I joined like it was kind of early, 2016, and as soon as I joined it was just we were working on the first album. So yeah, from the get-go pretty much, like I joined and they had the first session booked, and yeah, and then I think No Discordance that came out in 2018.
Yes.
So, and like I'd never really I've been in like other bands since I was quite young, but never been in a band that was sort of doing as much as this. You know, I'd never really done like a tour or like been away to Europe, and so yeah, it was kind of like a shock to just like join and start immediately doing an album, and we went away and did a tour. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that you guys developed a pretty huge fan base with that record. It got a lot of reviews, and there were a lot of comparisons to a lot of American bands like the Menzingers and Story So Far. And I was telling Louis before you came on that you guys remind me of like a Discord band, Discord Records. Like I worked with Dag Nasty,
Awesome.
and I hear a little Dag Nasty. I hear some, but you guys get a lot of
Oh, wow.
comparisons. And does that bother you that the band gets compared to so many other bands?
Not really. Like, I think it's great that we remind you of Discord bands. Like, that's exactly the kind of thing we're going for. Like, not as in like trying to rip anyone off, but like Mark said, like the last show we did, like that literally came out of Mark's band. The sound engineer was like, "What kind of style are you?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, Discord kind of stuff." So it's cool that you pick up on that. And yeah, I didn't realize you worked with Dag Nasty. That's that's pretty cool.
I actually put the
Yeah.
field day record, because I used to run Giant Records, so that's I didn't the first two records with Dave Smalley on the first record, and then Wig Out at Denko's. I was a fan of those records,
Yeah.
and then when they wanted to try something
Yeah.
different, I knew Doug Carrion from the Descendants because I worked with them when I was at Enigma Records too. So the whole thing came together, and Field Day was like a very commercial record for them, But it either people loved it or hated it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. Like I mean, I don't know that one as much. I know Can I Say the most. That's going to be one of my favorite albums, I think. But yeah, it's not weird when people compare us. Um, that's kind of people's way of putting their own finger on our sound. So I think it's nice that we remind people of other things they like, sort of thing. So yeah,
I
can't
read this.
complain.
I read this one review, and this writer wrote, "No discordance." I have trouble saying that word. No discordance. Transits from plain melodic punk rock to a completely different dimension with gradual additions of emo, shoegaze, pop punk, skate punk, post-hardcore, grunge, and indie rock. That's a lot of genres thrown into one description. So I don't know. I didn't hear all that, but writers always hear different things.
Or just cover all the
Yeah.
bases, basically.
pretty much they did.
Yeah.
uh, Axiom came out in 2021, and I think that's an excellent album. Everything seemed to just come together for the band. Sigh of Crows is a brilliant song. I like Adulthood. The track I really like, and you guys ended up doing it at that live at South Sea Sound, was Mariah. Did I say that right? Mariah. That track jumps.
Mariah, yeah.
Yeah, the drumming very good on that track, and the heavy guitar. It reminds me of kind of like Mission of Burma. I don't know if you know that band, where it's like noisy, and then all of a sudden it goes into like something real melodic. And I always like bands that can do that.
Mm. Yeah, no, the name rings a bell, but I can't say I've listened to them. But it could be, that might have been one of the influences on Mark, like writing the song, or us forming it. But yeah, Mariah, that's a fun one to play. Louis been rehearsing that with us, getting to know our songs more and more recently, right?
Yeah, I mean that's particularly that's probably the fastest song. So I think when I was first learning it, it was like, oh God, I've got to speed this up by about 10 times faster or something. But it was, yeah.
Is the current set that you're doing now, do you guys play a lot of the songs from the first two records?
So, yeah, I guess at the moment it's because I've been sort of catching up and learning the back catalogue. It's mainly kind of, I suppose, Axiom heavy, and then there's some new songs as well, like the new singles, and I think we're doing 2 off the first album. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, we're not doing as much from No Discordance. Yeah, it's a lot of it is like Louis said, Axiom, and we've got sort of a bunch of new singles this year that we're kind of halfway through releasing. We've still got a couple more to come out. So yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix of everything, I guess.
Was it a difficult period for you guys? And this is more for Matt. When the pandemic hit, you guys had no discordance. I'm saying it better and better every time I say it. And actually, there's this period in between there. Did that kind of like throw you guys off your game a little bit?
Definitely, yeah. Us and everyone and everything, like it really hit us hard. Yeah, it slowed everything right down. Obviously with like the lockdowns, we couldn't tour. But apart from the shock or like lack of being able to play live, we just started using the time during the pandemic, like the lockdowns, to just focus more on writing, and it helped us, I guess, like get better at demoing. We wrote all of Axiom, yeah, during the lockdown, and we were just kind of like demoing and sending the tracks back and forth, and forming them that way. And but by the time it came to recording the album, we'd already like done it a couple of times already. So yeah, and then Axiom was done I think later on in the first year of the pandemic. So that was when restrictions were kind of lifted a bit. So things were still kind of strict, but we were able to travel to Leeds, which is where we recorded, and get it done. And then obviously, yeah, more lockdowns happened after that. So
Tony was still with you when you were during that period, correct?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I was just curious because I heard different reasons. Did he just get tired of touring and he just didn't want to play in a band anymore, or did he go to another band? Or
Yeah, it was mainly just so he'd been in the band since the very beginning, along with Mark, and I think just like over time, um, I think it got a bit draining for him, and ended up, tours were becoming more and more difficult, and he was like a bit older than the rest of us, and had done a lot with the band, and I think he just wanted to step back and not do it. Yeah. So it was his yeah, he just reached the point where he had to kind of pick, and it was his decision just to say, look, I can't really do it anymore. Yeah.
I didn't see any of this on your Bandcamp page or anywhere else that I did research on the band, so I'm not positive. But is he on the Live at the South Sea Sound record or not? Like, who plays guitar on
Yeah,
that? Is
he
that Lou?
is.
That is Tony?
That is Tony, yeah. Yeah, he was I think he did everything up until his last show with us was in, I think, July last year. So, and we did that. I can't. This is the thing with the pandemic. I like it all just blurs into one. I can't remember when we did the session, but yeah, he's on that. He was with us then. So.
Believe me, it was no different here in the States. It was a nightmare,
Yeah.
man. I was living in I live in the Boston area, and it was like lockdown for a while, and we were all going nuts. I had to quit drinking after the pandemic because I drank so much that I was like, I can't drink any more alcohol, man. Otherwise, I'm going to be 100%. I mean, so I get it.
Yeah.
It screwed every band up. Everybody's tour. Did you guys have touring planned during that time?
Yeah, we did. We I don't know. Do you know the band Magnapop?
Oh, I love Magna Pop. Ruthie was
Yeah.
on my show, Ruthie Morris. Yeah, I
Really?
love them. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so when was it? We did a tour with Magnapop in Europe where we supported them in late 2019, I think.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, they're great. We had a lot of fun playing with them. And so they asked us to go back because they had another one planned like the year later. And yeah, it just kept getting postponed and moved each year, and we didn't want to. The thing is, like when it hit, we stopped wanting to make new touring plans just because
You didn't know.
yeah, like everything, even when they were like lifting restrictions or whatever, and people were starting to tour again, like people were still getting sick and stuff getting cancelled. So we just kind of went, no, we're gonna wait until like the bulk of this is gone until we actually do a tour. And we haven't done like a tour since. We've done kind of like bits and pieces and like one-offs, but yeah, we've been sort of putting off like doing like a week or a couple of weeks somewhere just. But yeah, I think now's gonna be the time where we start doing that, like this year and next year. So
I have
yeah.
every Magnapop record. I love that band. They're like one of my favorites. When Bob Mould started working with them years ago from Husker Du, the band became really popular. And then when they took a long break, I was disappointed. And then when I heard when they came back and they were going to Europe, did you guys talk to them about possibly coming to the States?
Maybe a little bit, but there wasn't like a they were really nice and welcoming, and I can't remember like any talks of like actually doing a tour, but that would be like we'd be open to it. But
yeah,
they were just
they're a little older
really...
than you. Yeah, they're a little older than you guys are too, because they've been around for a while. I mean, I think I first saw them in God, it must have been the late 80s, you know.
Mm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really fun. I totally forgot that you guys played with them. Wow, that's fantastic. So we got to get Louis in this conversation.
Yeah. Sorry,
So
Louis.
yeah. So Louis, you joined the band in the summer of 2022.
No, it's sort of more later than that, really. So probably December, I think, maybe. So I'd been aware of the band, just sort of gigging around Brighton and being aware of the name of Harker, and may have done been on the same bill or something like that. But I was sort of aware of them, and then had heard the Axiom album, but yeah, it wasn't until I think December when we kind of got together, really.
What was it like when you first started rehearsing with the band? Did you feel like you seemingly just fell right into place, or was it difficult at first?
It was weird, actually. It was quite. I think for me, I've been in bands for years, but I haven't actually had to kind of audition or learn other people's songs, and so it was a bit kind of something I wasn't really that hadn't done for a while. And I think that first rehearsal, it was like, how's this going to go? I was probably a bit nervous, and then yeah, it just seemed, after a few run throughs, it just seemed to kind of click. And by the end of the rehearsal, I was like, oh yeah, this feels good for me,
Yeah, Matt and Phoebe are really locked in as a rhythm section, so that must have made it a little easier for you having them
Oh
because
yeah,
they're both really good musicians. Phoebe's an excellent bass player. I'm sure you
brilliant.
realize that you play with her, and Matt's a great drummer. So did that make it a lot easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it just because they're such a tight unit, and obviously they've played together for years. If anything, it was a bit like, oh, gonna have to up my game here, just because they're so tight. So it's you don't want to be you've got to fit in, and you've got to be as tight as they are. So it was good. It's kind of like a fun challenge.
Does Mark write all the songs?
He well he a lot of the kind of like starting ideas come from him. So I would say the bulk of it, yeah. But over time it's been more and more like collaborative kind of thing.
Is it like he writes the lyrics and you guys write the music together or something like that? Or do you both work on the
Yeah,
lyrics and the music?
yeah, it's a mixture. Like he writes all the lyrics, and he'll usually it'll be the classic sort of starting. He'll have like a riff or a chord progression, or he'll have like the skeleton of a song. It varies sort of how much he'll bring to the table to start with. So yeah, it's kind of different from song to song, but yeah, as I said, like over time, it's just become more of an effort of like the all four of us um, giving it like the back and forth and working on it more.
When Louis came in, did it feel comfortable for you from the start? Like, did you feel like a resurgence come on?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was yeah, definitely like it was good to have another guitar again. Like we
Did you do some
so
shows as a three-piece?
we did, yeah, we like not many. We did like two as a three-piece. We supported there's a European band called Spielberg's who yeah, we supported them in Brighton, and then we did like a festival in London, just lead guitarist, bless. And so yeah, it was good to bring Louis in and sort of be a four-piece again. And yeah, I mean, I was impressed from the get-go, and the others were as well. Not only just in terms of like music, but just like us getting on well, and all the other stuff he does for the band. He's like really impressed us, I've got to say, like in what he does.
Were you familiar with Mules?
I still haven't seen them, and I need to. So I'm kind of like kicking myself for that. But I'd listened to a couple of songs they've released. So yeah, I enjoyed what I heard.
So in March you put out Wasting Time. You played on that, right, Louis?
Wasting Time. No, I think Mark had recorded all the guitar parts for that one. Yeah.
So was Out the Window the first song you played on?
I think the first two I've actually recorded are the next two singles that are due to come out. So I think these 4 tracks that we're bringing out over the year, it's very much a sort of transitional kind of bit by bit. So I think so Wasting Time and Out the Window I'm not actually on, but
forgive me because none of this information is on the Bandcamp page. So whoever's doing the Bandcamp page,
that's all right.
Please list the names of the musicians on the songs. The producers get all the credit, but you don't know who plays what on what. But I'm sure that those songs came out in March and May. So I mean, Wasting Time. Once again, it reminded me of that late '80s American punk scene. Moving Targets was another band that I wrote down that I really like that you guys sound like. I love that song. It's I think that's the reason why I reached out to you guys actually, because when I got the message from Mike, the publicist, and I heard that song, I was like, I remember that band. This song's great. Let's get them on the show. So maybe you can talk about this one a little bit, Matt, Wasting Time.
Yeah. So Mark had like a bunch of demos or ideas that he was like sending us towards, I guess, kind of like, I think it was before Tony left, and we had these kind of new ideas in the bank, but we weren't really working on them at the time. Sorry, my mind's just kind of all a blank.
Louis, you can act like you were there when this all happened and tell us what happened, if you want.
No, you weren't there. You don't know what it was like.
You don't know.
Stressful time. No, it was, what was I saying? We had the ideas from Mark, and he kind of had the rough ideas for like Wasting Time and a few others. And during the time we were a 3-piece and we did those couple of shows, we booked some time just to start. We just wanted to really get going again and start recording and playing more. So yeah, we did do a session, recorded 2 of the new songs.
Out the Window, was that in the same session?
Yeah, it was Wasting Time and Out the Window we did just as a 3-piece. So Mark just did all the guitars, showing off and just
I like the video for Out the Window. Good video.
Well, yeah, Louis, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so that was put together by my mate Sam, who's the drummer in Mules. He's a really talented photographer and video guy. And yeah, I think Mark had this idea of just having a really kind of claustrophobic sort of band video, so we kind of recorded it in the basement of the record shop that Mark works in, and Sam just sort of put it together really quickly and easily, and it was really, I think it's turned out really well actually.
Yeah, real good. I like the track too. It's another melodic punk song. Why don't we talk about what's going on in the future, because I know you guys are going to Germany in a couple weeks. What's the deal with that? Is that a cruise? I think I saw.
Yeah, so there's this thing in Hamburg called Booze Cruise. And it's a festival that's like across a few venues over there. And I think I haven't been on the cruise, but there is one where some of the bands play on. But I didn't we played in, I think, 2018 we played Booze Cruise, and it was really hot. It's probably the hottest gig I've played. Um and yeah, we're going back. I think like the Menzingers and Flatliners and loads of other awesome bands are playing. But yeah, it's kind of like a 3-day thing.
Have you been to Hamburg before?
That was yeah, we played it like I think it was 2018. We played the same thing. I don't think we're playing the same venue this time, but yeah, it was great. I haven't explored Hamburg myself. I think maybe Mark and Phoebe have before on another time, but yeah, this will be the second time.
What are some of the other countries that you went to? Didn't you guys go to Japan?
We did, yeah.
How was Japan for you, for Harker?
Amazing, just like unbelievable. Like I just felt like a little kid. Like yeah, we went. That was in 2019. I think we flew out on my birthday actually. So, and because of the time difference, my birthday lasted for like a day and a half. but most of it was on the flight.
It sounds like a party, man.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just like something else. Just amazing. Like everyone was really nice. The shows were really busy. We know, so we've got the contact there. His name is Kay, who deals with the production of our CDs. And he kept saying to Mark, like for a few years, like Harker should come over and play. And yeah, eventually just we sorted it out, and it was just crazy.
Are there plans for you guys to go back to Japan and some other territories?
Yeah, I mean we're talking about going back. I don't know exactly when, but hopefully in the next couple of years. But you know, it all depends. We need to actually look into doing it first. But yeah, I'd love to go back.
I know you just put these singles out. Is there a plan to do have a full-length album and these tracks will be included, or is that going to be a whole separate thing for you?
I think it's going to be a separate thing. So it's sort of, these are kind of 4 standalone tracks for this year, and then we're going to start on the next album sort of towards the end of this year and get it out for next year. And that's the sort of plan, really.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so I think these tracks will always be sort of standalone things, and we might kind of do some more standalone singles further down the line, and maybe collate them on a collection later on. But I think that's the kind of rough plan.
That's the trend these days. You know, a lot of bands are just releasing singles. How do you guys feel about that? Would you rather just do a full album, or do you like the idea of releasing, as you call them, standalone singles like that?
Yeah, I prefer albums myself. You know, I like vinyl records, albums, all that sort of stuff. But I suppose it's just the cost of making it. It just makes it's so hard to kind of get the money together to kind of record an album. And you know, sometimes it's quite good just to do one-off songs here and there, just to give something and show that, you know, what the band are currently doing. But yeah, personally, albums.
Is there like a label affiliation now? I mean, I know you guys have worked with Wiretap and some different labels. Are you actually signed to a label now, or are you just like gonna make new music and see what happens?
Yeah, we're not signed. We're just yeah, we've got a few labels that we put the releases out through. So yeah, Wiretap is the US one. We've got Disconnect, which is UK. and yeah, a couple of European ones we've been involved with, and a Japanese fixing a hole as well. But yeah,
That's the name
we're
of the label, Fixing a Hole.
fixing a hole. Yeah.
I love that, man. Love that. I know where they got that. You know too, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine talking to anyone in England that's not a Beatles fan, but you know, I suppose that's possible. I wanted to ask you why you guys always get this term emo gaze attached to you, because I don't know why they would. I mean, I can understand how people would think that the band's a little emo, but to me, you guys are like a I hate to use the term post-punk, but you're pretty much a punk band, like a with melody, you know. I mean, what's the emo gaze? Is that something that you guys decided to attach to the band, or is that all writers and media, or what?
I'm trying to remember where it came from, because I can't remember if it was one of us that said it first, or if it was in like a review or something. But
Yeah, I thought it was a sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of like, made up term. But
yeah,
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 I'd agree with you, Steve. I think it's primarily a punk band, but there's sort of little influences of bit of emo, bit of shoegaze. But
You know, when I think of bands like Husker Du, Dag Nasty, Descendants, I always call them popcore bands, you know, because it's like not hardcore and it's not punk and it's got a little pop. So popcore, you know, that's just the term that I like to use. I wanted to ask you guys about some of your individual influences. I mean, if you want to go first, Louis, is there any guitar players that you've been influenced by, even as a youngster and as you've gotten older? Or is there new guys that you like, or
yeah, I mean the kind of big ones for me are Johnny Marr from the Smiths, like probably my favorite guitarist, but also James Williamson from the Stooges, and yeah, I like lots of sort of, I don't know, kind of post-punk guitarists, like trying to think, like bands like Joy Division and Gang of Four, and things that aren't too traditionally rock. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's probably loads. Actually, when you were mentioning Carlos Alomar with Bowie, he's an amazing guitarist, someone I really like.
yeah.
Definitely.
I love
also,
Joy Division, by the way. You mentioned Joy Division.
Yeah, big fan.
Fantastic band.
Yeah, no, they're great, and yeah, all sorts of things really. I love kind of Pixies and Nirvana and that sort of grunge guitar sound and Sonic
No
Youth.
classic rock for you, huh?
Not really, no. I think because I just could never really play it. I was never really that good at shredding, or I was much better at making kind of feedback noise and fuzzy riffs and things like that. So yeah, and I think I've come much more from an indie sensibility into punk rather than a rock world.
Yeah, well, you said Johnny Marr first, so he's a pretty
Yeah.
good guitar player. I mean,
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what Matt has to say about this.
yeah, like for me, it's a bit of a mix. When I was younger, it was I was quite into like metal, and so I was listening to, I guess, like the drummers on, like in terms of drums, I'd say like Joey from Slipknot, um, Brian from Mastodon. He was a big influence. Lots of like, that was just when I was younger though, like metalcore. Travis Barker, I was a big Blink-182 fan. And then now I'd say like a lot of like post-hardcore bands I get influenced by. One of my favorite bands is Touche Amore. So it's kind of, I don't necessarily have like a big list of drummers to sort of talk about, but it's gonna be just like a big mix of bands and like how they sound, and like again, yeah, I'm into the alternative side of it as well. Like Converge, a big influence on me. Like quite a lot
They're
of,
from around here, actually. They're from
yeah,
this area, yeah.
yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I saw them. They came to UK November, I think. So,
You guys would do really well in Boston.
yeah,
Absolutely. Boston, New York, Philly. Yeah, you guys would do really well here.
yeah,
You know, in Detroit, you know, I mean, I know Louis mentioned James Williamson. You know, I think that, you know, the Detroit really appreciate that scene. It's more of a garage rock scene, but they appreciate, like, you know, bands like you. It's really funny if you redid your bio and you put influences, the Smiths and Mastodon. I think that would be really good.
Well, that's I need to add like that was more like younger me growing up, and you know wanting to
That was
like
funny though. That was funny, man. I think it's funny.
I'd go and see that band. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I was that's back when I wanted like a million drums and a million cymbals in my set, and wanting to play fast and complicated, and but yeah, that's yeah, sorry.
You know, I got to talk to you about England a little bit because people in the States have different views. I've only been to England once. I stayed in Kensington for 4 days. I went to see Rough Trade in Caroline, and I one in the two, but I didn't get to go all over the place. But you know, you got Wales, and you've got Brighton, and you've got Manchester, and you got Birmingham, and you got London, but it doesn't look very big on a map. How can there possibly be so many bands from all these places? I mean, it's like every other person in a band there, or what? I mean, please explain this to me. It's been like this since the 60s too. It's not like a new thing.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that is especially Brighton. I mean, there's so many bands and so many musicians, and just in one small little city. But yeah, I don't know what it is about the UK. It's like every county or every kind of big city has its own like microcosm of, you know, bands and scenes, and um I don't know why it's so kind of intense over here. It's sort of so small and compact, but yeah, like you say, kind of Manchester's got its own thing. Liverpool, and they're so close to each other, but they're wildly different. And London, obviously. Yeah, no idea, no idea why that's the case.
See, I when I was young, I'm a little older than you guys. I mean, I was into like my favorite bands when I heard were like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Queen. And you know, I was like, wow. And you know, I know Black Sabbath from Birmingham, right? Which is like
Yeah,
it seems like it's like a very lower middle class kind of factory area, you know. And then you got and then Queen. They met in Kensington. When I went to Kensington, I was like, Queen is from here? I couldn't figure that out at all. It was like, so it's like the States, but then again, a lot of bands in America that come from cities, they're kind of like middle class kids, you know. You got some, you know, smart guys in bands, but it's mostly a lot of guys that are like, you know, grew up kind of like, you know, in a lower middle class kind of situation, you know. I imagine in England it's pretty much the same, right?
yeah. I think with I don't know so much now, but it used to be if you're working class, music was kind of one of the escapes really of getting out of your situation. You know, you kind of because of the class system, I suppose you're kept in your place. And so one of the few ways that you could escape that is to make music or art or culture or play sport or things like that. So, I think that's why all of the best bands in my opinion, from the UK generally come from working class backgrounds.
Yeah.
I don't know about now. It's maybe a bit different, but traditionally,
It's like, when it used to be like NME and Sounds and those Melody Maker and those magazines. Those bands, do those publications even exist, and do they matter anymore in the UK?
Not really. I mean, Melody Maker doesn't exist. I think the enemy is just online now, and I don't know. I mean, I used to get it in the '90s when it was like a paper, and it was a big deal, and obviously that was pre-internet as well. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's still a news resource for like music, but I think it's quite a different thing now.
There were a lot of bands that I knew back then, like the Lemonheads, Juliana Hatfield, Pixies. Those bands all became bigger in England than they did in the US, and then they became big in the US. You'd get those, NME, and Evan Dando would be on the cover and be like, he's not even in any magazines in the US, So, you guys kind of like, I imagine that these days English people are probably afraid of America anyways, after, what we just went through with, I don't even want to say the guy's name because we can't get him out of the news. He's still in the news. It was like, just, does England look at the US now and go like, wow, this is a crazy country with no leadership and insane people running the, you can be honest.
Well, I mean, we've had Boris Johnson, so I think
Yeah, we could.
Hey, I would have traded Trump for Boris Johnson any day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they were buddies too. But well, so you've got like Hamburg coming up, and is there a lot of tour dates booked in the UK in the future here, for the immediate future?
So I suppose we're just doing kind of festival slots at the moment. So we've got Hamburg, and then we're doing is it Right to Rome up in Bolton, and one for the road, and then we're doing a sort of big show in Brighton at the Prince Albert at the end of the month.
Who's that with?
So we're headlining that, and then we've got a couple of local bands supporting, who are I think it's Epsom Salts and I've forgotten the other bands. Do you remember, Matt?
But you guys are headlining.
Yeah. It's us and Epsom Salts and a band called B-Bomb.
Cool. Is there anything else that you want to tell most of my people? I have like 2% of my listening audience is in the UK, so I'm hoping I can increase that a little bit.
Yeah.
With Harker, you guys are gonna take me to the top of the British podcast airwaves.
No problem.
Yeah.
Is there any other things that I may have not mentioned that you want to mention about the band?
Not really. Just
watch this space. Yeah, we've kind of got these odd gigs, but we're going to be. I think the plan is to do tours coming up, and obviously we've got a couple more singles coming out this year.
Yeah.
And,
after having a big chunk of being on pause, it's like just trying to get back into it. We'd love to play Boston at some point.
Love to see you in Boston.
Yeah.
Definitely. You'll have to do the whole US though, because you want to go to California too,
Oh, yeah.
You guys would do really well on the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, LA. You could do the whole West Coast. There's the type of music that you guys are involved in is very popular in America. So, post-punk, call it whatever you can even call it emo gaze if you want. Call it whatever you want. It's quite popular. I think you guys are a great band, and I'm totally into it. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks
Cheers,
very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for the kind comments and everything. It's good to No, appreciated.
Yeah, I really, your music's great, man, and I do. I spent the whole week going through everything, and I was like, wow, these guys have a great body of work. So, and I know there's probably going to be a lot more now that you got Louis.
Yeah, we've yeah. So I guess like the other thing to say is just keep an eye out. We've got more, singles coming up. Probably some more videos. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Cheers, Steve.
Thanks.
Cheers.